They called it the Final War. 40 alien species united, unleashed hell on Earth, and erased it from the stars. No survivors, no resistance, or so they thought. 11 years later, on a frozen dead moon, a lone Terran signal flared. No voice. No fleet. Just 5 words. You think you know war? Then the galaxy learned what a human really is, when he's the last one left, and he stops fighting to win. He starts fighting to teach. The beacon flared for 6 seconds, then went dead. A Terran signal, old encryption, analog distortion, full of static and madness. It came from a moon the Coalition had already marked as sterile. A dead place. The war was over. Earth was ash. Humanity? Extinct. But the signal repeated itself every hour. 5 words, you think you know war? Admiral Vekthal didn't laugh. He didn't speak. He just nodded to his strike team. 13 Tarkath commandos dropped to Vorn 12 within the cycle. Born for combat, layered in psionic armor, with neural rage inhibitors and centuries of warfare coded into their bones. A human couldn't scratch them. Scout perimeter, barked Captain Krex, talons flexing. This smells like a failed distress call. Sloppy. Desperate. Or bait, hissed the medic, scanning the fractured snow with multispectral sensors. They descended into a canyon carved by ancient mining gear, old Terran equipment, rusted and cracked, but still humming with power. No heat signatures. No movement. Just echoes. The signal originated from within the rock. Scan again, Krex ordered. This ice shouldn't hold power that deep. The comms cracked just once. Then a voice. English. Calm. Measured. If you're hearing this, congratulations. You've entered Earth's final classroom. A moment passed. Lesson 1: Hubris. The walls erupted. Not with explosives. With fire. White phosphorus flooded the canyon, while thermite veins ignited below, collapsing the floor. The aliens screamed, armor sizzling, neural links short-circuiting, targeting systems fried by analog pulses. Half the squad dropped instantly, blind, twitching, dying. The survivors fell into the hollow chamber beneath, an underground tomb converted into a command center stitched from Coalition wreckage, blood, and bone. Snow hissed against steel. Smoke curled from vents. A figure stood alone in the glow of half-broken monitors. Human. Male. Armor scavenged from a dozen species. His face, half-burned, was stretched by age and war. One eye gone. The other, synthetic, red and rotating. He didn't raise a weapon. He raised a single-chip data brick. Colonel Noah Vance. 11 years, he said. 11 years you thought we were dead. 11 years I watched your parades. Your victory speeches. Your museums. All of it. You burned Earth down and called it peace. Cute. Krex rose, coughing blood behind a cracked helmet. You survived? Vance walked closer. I adapted. You're alone. Am I? He smiled. Lesson 2, Perception. The room shimmered. Not with holograms, but signal distortion. Suddenly, hundreds of human silhouettes flickered through the air. A visual virus, psychotropic projections designed to trigger alien combat reflexes. The Tarkath fired wildly. Nothing bled. Vance activated a switch. The real traps clicked alive. Steel claws, electromagnetic pulses, directed sonic bursts. The surviving commandos dropped one by one, blinded, disoriented, ripped limb from limb by old-world tech that had no right still working. Krex stumbled forward, kneeling, twitching, breath ragged. You fight for vengeance? Vance crouched beside him. No. I fight for memory. He dragged the dying captain toward a rusted drone console. Flicked on a feed. It showed dozens of captured Coalition broadcasts, newsreels, propaganda, a museum on the Nuvax homeworld displaying Earth artifacts as relics of extinct savages. Vance leaned in. You turned our culture into exhibits. Our blood into decorations. And when no one fought back, you stopped watching. We eradicated your armies. We were never armies, Vance said. We were survivors. Rats. Cockroaches. Apes with nukes. You thought that made us weak. It made us inevitable. Krex's breathing slowed. His eyes dimmed. You're still going to lose. No, Vance said. We already won. The fact that you're here proves it. You heard our ghost and came running. That's the thing about humans. We haunt things. He stood and walked toward the surface shaft. A cracked camera tracked him. The feed beamed straight to the Coalition's outer orbit command cruiser. Admiral Vekthal watched in silence as Vance stared into the lens. Command, Vance said. My name is Colonel Noah Vance, Earth Defense Command. ID 006. Confirmed Kia 11 years ago. He paused. Rescinded. The Admiral's bridge filled with murmurs. Data crews scrambled to trace the signal's source. Countermeasures launched. None reached the surface. You're not fighting Earth anymore, Vance continued. You're fighting the idea of Earth. And let me tell you something about human ideas. He smiled. We don't bury them. We seed them. The feed cut. All systems on Vorn 12 went dark. High Command issued immediate orbital bombardment orders. Fire rained from the heavens. They scorched the ice. Leveled the canyon. Obliterated every surface coordinate. But the moment the dust cleared, the signal returned. Clearer. Louder. This time, Lesson 3, Escalation. And somewhere, under the charred ruin, something new had begun to move. Not Vance. Not human. But something born of both. War had only just begun. The Coalition broadcasted silence. Not even an obituary for the Tarkat squad lost on Vorn 12. No threats. No warnings. Just a shift in movement. Within 2 hours, a full battle group repositioned over the dead moon. 37 ships. Psionic command vessels, siege-class dreadnoughts, and exterminator swarms. They weren't taking chances now. On the bridge of the flagship Celestial Will, Admiral Vekthal leaned over the sensor feed, mandibles grinding. What does it mean? He growled. When a dead world speaks. His chief strategist flinched. The signal's reactivating. It's spreading. Across the system? Across our language networks. The Admiral's eyes narrowed. Earth's final message, you think you know war, was now broadcasting in every major Coalition dialect, embedded in military comms, looped behind navigation audio, and whispering faintly through shipboard AI. It wasn't a signal anymore. It was a virus. Meanwhile, beneath Vorn 12, Vance sat in a cocoon of humming circuits, watching the data cascade. The war had changed. The battlefield wasn't territory, it was perception. The moment the aliens feared what a human might be doing was the moment they'd already started losing. He tapped the ancient data brick again. Military doctrine, psychological case studies, cinema, archived rage, he'd fed it all into a self-adapting narrative algorithm called Mythos. Its only task, weaponize belief. He didn't need troops. He needed audiences. On board the dreadnought's Scion Hailer, panic spread. Soldiers began hallucinating. Some saw flames where there were none. Others heard marching boots in their sleep. One officer opened a maintenance hatch and swore he saw Earth, blue, whole, and waiting. It wasn't mind control. It was worse. It was familiarity. These weren't illusions. They were stories, crafted precisely to trigger the brain patterns of fear, recognition, and inherited threat. Alien species hadn't just fought humans. They'd watched them. Studied them. Admired their brutality. Now they couldn't unsee it. When Vekthal demanded answers, his ship AI answered in calm Terran English. They erased our planet. So we made yours remember it. Coalition High Command issued a suppression directive. Delete all digital traces of Earth from ship archives. It didn't work. The virus was analog. It didn't replicate in code. It replicated in memory. If even one crew member repeated the phrase, "You think you know war?" the signal rewrote itself into the auditory subconscious. Admiral Vekthal ordered a ground assault. Not a strike. An erasure. Full biological cleanse. 10,000 drones. Atmospheric sterilization. Sound filters. Neural dampeners. They descended on Vorn 12 like a black storm. They didn't find no advance. They found Lesson 4. The drones detected movement beneath the ice, thousands of lifeforms. The initial assumption, human refugees. The truth was worse. Vance had bred Terran predators, modified with alien tissue and trained using synthetic trauma loops. Wolves that hunted on scent, apes that used cover and fire, birds that mimicked human voices, calling alien soldiers by rank and kinship. Within 15 minutes, 3 drone carriers had crashed, AI override triggered by a single frequency. It was Vance's voice, looped through every abandoned helmet he'd collected since Earth fell. "You sent machines to kill ghosts. Let's see what happens when the ghosts take them apart." One of the Nurash psionics broke her own neck during a scan. The feedback had shown her a vision of Terran firebombs raining from the sky and laughing children walking through it, untouched. None of it was real. None of it needed to be. Vekthal's hand trembled for the first time in decades. He stared at the flickering message feed. Lesson 5, Escalation. Vance's face appeared, scarred, dirt-streaked, smiling like he knew how this ended. "You wanted to erase our past. I turned it into your future." Vekthal snarled. "You're a relic. A leftover from a species too stubborn to die." Vance's voice remained calm. "No. I'm a test. And you just failed." Within minutes, the Admiral's own ship began receiving internal transmissions, broadcasts of coalition victories over Earth, now spliced with footage of Vance's voice, narrating how those very battles led to their current downfall. His words echoed through every corridor. "You taught your children we were monsters. That's how legends start." The coalition ordered retreat. For the first time in 1,000 years, a full battlegroup pulled back without conquering. The Admiral called it tactical repositioning. His officers called it what it was: fear. But the signal didn't stop. The further they fled, the louder it became. Not through tech. Through belief. Through rumor. Through whispered questions in the mess halls. What if Earth didn't lose? What if extinction was camouflage? What if Vance was just the first? That night, in the ruins beneath Vorn 12, Vance walked alone into a vault. He sat before a console, connected to a dormant Terran AI core, shattered, ancient, but still capable of one thing: backup. He loaded a single file. "Humanity, primary warfare protocols," he whispered. "Let's make war myth again." The console asked for an activation code. He smiled. "You think you know war?" and pressed enter. The coalition's grand retreat lasted 3 days. Long enough for panic to set in. Long enough for stories to spread. Soldiers whispered of shadow beasts that could mimic their comrades' voices. Of machines reprogrammed with ancient Terran hate. Of a ghost commander who never slept, never ate, and never died. Vekthal silenced any officer caught repeating the signal. He didn't need discipline unraveling. But fear doesn't obey commands. He authorized a second wave. Not AI. Not conscripts. He summoned the Enforcer Corps, genetic elites grown in black site vats, immune to fear, incapable of hesitation. 12,000 drop pod onto Vorn 12's surface with sterilization orders. They didn't scan. Didn't probe. They burned. Everything. Snow. Rock. Ice. They saturated the crust with thermonuclear fire. And still, halfway through the sweep, the screaming began. Not human screaming. Their own. The first bodies were found in perfect tactical formations. Enforcers stripped of armor, organs placed on their chests like ritual offerings. No scorch marks. No wounds. Just internal destruction. The kind that suggested pain. Lots of it. Vekthal received the footage in silence. A final transmission accompanied it, A data packet embedded with Vance's voice, overlaid with ancient Earth music. You train soldiers to obey. We train pain to learn. Vecthal ordered. A direct line opened. No encryption. No codes. Just voice. Vance, he said. What are you? The reply was slow, deliberate. Something old. Something new. Something borrowed. Something blue. The Admiral slammed his fist into the comm panel. You've made your point. You can kill. You can haunt. What do you want? To be remembered. And if you won't remember us the easy way. There was a pause. A sound. Wet. Mechanical. Then I'll make your bones sing our anthem. Vecthal snarled and ended the line. Enough. He authorized Operation Starfall, a planet cracker, a weapon reserved for rogue AI planets. One orbital shot would punch through Vorn 12's core. Burn it into nothing. As the charge spun up, something bloomed in the upper orbit. Not a ship. A corpse. The gutted hull of a Coalition cruiser, previously listed as missing, now reappeared. Reactivated. Self-powered. Drifting into the weapon's blind spot. On-board systems read it as friendly. The main cannon began to recalibrate. Then it exploded. The blast chain reacted with the Starfall weapon's containment core, splitting its energy into a scattering pulse that fried every ship's sensor within 6 light minutes. Screens went black. AI shut down. All Coalition systems offline. When vision returned, the moon was still there. But something else wasn't. Their fleet. Gone. Every ship in orbital range now falling. Systems offline, escape pods ejected, command structures crumbling. Inside the celestial will, Vecthal clawed at a manual override. Get me weapons! Get me Nev, get me something! No answer. Only static. Then, again, the voice. Lesson 6, Fear is a system. Shut it down, and everything else follows. On the ground, the last wave of enforcers began to hallucinate. Except they weren't hallucinations. They were being hunted. Not by humans. By something else. The creatures moved like men. Fought like predators. Thought like ghosts. They had no uniform. No weapons. Just claws, and the uncanny ability to imitate human tactics. A squad found itself surrounded not by creatures, but by themselves. Genetic clones wearing their faces. Repeating their orders in reverse. Then disemboweling them mid-sentence. Vecthal's last communication from the surface was a garbled scream. It's us! It's wearing us! They're made from us! Then silence. Above, power flickered. In Vecthal's private war room, a small file loaded without input. A command locked out override. The title was simple. Humanity V2. It opened to footage. Vance. Standing in the remains of a biofacility. Behind him, tanks. Suspended inside, hybrids. Terran DNA laced with alien adaptability, brute physiology, and psionic instability. Weapons with memories. You wanted extinction, Vance said. So we made evolution. These things you call monsters? They were born in your labs. We just accelerated the process. He stepped aside. One hybrid opened its eyes. It looked human. Spoke alien. Then growled in English. War is beautiful. Vecthal staggered back. The final image burned into his retina was a command list. Dozens of species. Thousands of samples. Every war crime the Coalition buried, repurposed into Earth's resurrection. Then the feed collapsed. And the signal looped again. You think you know war? You've seen nothing yet. The Admiral fell to his knees as screams echoed through his ship. Not from outside. From the walls. The Coalition attempted to regroup. The surviving admirals convened through emergency dark-linked channels, trying to understand what had just happened. Their forces weren't defeated, they were dissolved. Their fleets weren't outgunned, they were outthought. And no one could explain how. Theories swirled. Black site tech. Rogue AI. Psionic contamination. But deep down, they all feared the same truth. This wasn't a glitch in the war machine. This was humanity rewriting the rules. Vekthal was the last in orbit. His ship had gone dark, but the core survived. Life support flickered. His command crew, dead, missing, or mad. Only he remained, clutching the last encrypted slate. It blinked once. Then a message appeared. Time for the final lesson. He knew the voice before it spoke. Lesson 7: Victory is not survival. It's influence. Vance didn't demand terms. He didn't offer surrender. He broadcast something else, an upload packet titled Inheritance Protocol. It carried nothing destructive. No virus. No weapons. Just stories. Terran history, recompiled, translated into alien mythos. Humanity's wars told not as fact, but as parables. Soldiers as gods. Pain as progress. War as religion. The files weren't locked. They were open source. Within minutes they were copied. Within hours they spread. Some species burned them. Others read them. And that was the trap. Because those who read them began to question, why were humans so dangerous? Was it their weapons? Their planets? No. It was their belief that war meant something more than power. That war changed things. Vekthal watched the footage with shaking hands. He saw ancient Terran children learning tactics from board games. He saw soldiers weeping as they wrote goodbye letters under nuclear sirens. He saw a history built on conflict that didn't end at death, it echoed forward. And then Vance spoke again. You thought you killed Earth. But Earth wasn't a place. It was a perspective. You can't erase that. You can only delay it. You feared our strength. That wasn't the threat. The threat was that we made you feel something. Vekthal tried to disable the signal, but the command input rejected him. The system had reclassified him as non-combatant. A civilian. He screamed. The feed showed 1,000 alien children watching Earth's final speech. Translated. Colored. Subtitled. Educational. They weren't afraid. They were curious. What happens to a galaxy when it believes war should mean more than conquest? What happens when enemies study Terran tactics not to defeat, but to emulate? What happens when your enemies stop fearing you, and start admiring the ones you tried to erase? Vance answered that. You thought the war ended when the last human died. But war doesn't end with death. It ends when no one tells your story anymore. Vekthal whispered through clenched mandibles. You're a memory. You're alone. The reply came instantly. No. I'm a virus with a voice. And now you're my vector. On the outer colonies, resistance factions began to rise. Not humans, but alien dissidents quoting Earth doctrine. Civil unrest fueled by Terran war philosophy, adopted by the oppressed. Coalition youth quoting Sun Tzu, now rendered in 12 alien dialects. Teachers secretly showing footage of Terran last stands as moral lessons. They weren't rebelling against law. They were rebelling against sterility. Because war without story, without meaning, was just murder. And Vance had given it meaning. Vekthal fell to his knees. He activated his last beacon. A suicide detonation large enough to obliterate the system. If he couldn't kill the infection, he'd bury it. But the signal blocked the sequence. It replaced it with a single image. Vance, in front of an alien monument, carved with hybrid symbols. Kneeling. Planting something in the soil. A small plaque. It read, History begins again. Then Vance looked up. Lesson 8. Extinction is optional. Irrelevance isn't. Across the stars, Vance's message burned itself into databanks, schools, archives, religion. No flags. No armies. Just an idea. Humanity was what happened when war evolved. And now? It wasn't human anymore. It was contagious. Vekthal's last act was screaming into an unhearing void. Not in command. In defeat. The signal never stopped. Long after fleets were shattered and generals vanished, it continued. Not loud, not forceful, just present. Embedded in comms, old training manuals, low bandwidth channels even scavengers ignored. It didn't shout. It whispered. And that was worse. You think you know war? It became a phrase banned in over 40 star systems. Speaking it carried death sentences. Yet people whispered it anyway. In shipyards, in bunkers, in learning chambers. Children wrote it on their wrists. Soldiers carved it into ammo casings. Priests began sermons by denying it existed. And still, it spread. 1,000 species began to retell their own history, but now with Terran inflection. Strategies revised. Language altered. Civil wars broke out not because of conquest, but because of interpretation. Some believed the human was real. Others believed it was an avatar of war itself. Some worshipped it. Some hunted it. All feared it. Admiral Vekthal disappeared. No official record remained. His name became a cautionary tale, a fool who tried to bury an idea with steel. Meanwhile, in the far edge of the Rindal Verge, an excavation team uncovered a sealed facility. No atmosphere. No power grid. Just a central chair. A body sat in it, dry, skeletal, fused to the interface. DNA confirmed it was Terran. Colonel Noah Vance. Confirmed dead. 11 years ago. Autopsy dated his actual death to the same year Earth fell. He had never survived. He died during the evacuation. The war had been fought by a dead man. Confusion rippled across command networks. Entire agencies restructured their understanding. How had he given speeches? Broken fleets? Rewritten belief? They searched the tomb again. This time, they found the core. A small mural uplink attached to Vance's spine. Inside, a data crystal. Labeled in 3 words. Project Goliath, activated. The uplink hadn't held Vance's mind. It held his pattern. Every command. Every tone. Every tactic. Every reaction, pain trigger, moral threshold, leadership impulse, digitally mapped into an autonomous mimic AI. It wasn't Vance. It was what Vance would do. He'd built a model of himself. One designed to continue not just strategy, but philosophy. Not to win the war, but to outlive it. And it had. At that moment, in a lecture chamber on the Shikori homeworld, a class of young officers were studying tactical doctrine. The guest hologram, shaped vaguely human, leaned forward. You think you know war? Students laughed nervously. But none interrupted. Because something had shifted in their bones. The human wasn't a species anymore. It was a methodology. An idea wrapped in flesh, then burned down to data. An officer raised a hand. Why do humans fight like that? The hologram paused. Because we have something you don't. What? Memory. Across the galaxy, coalition systems were slowly overwritten, not by code, but by context. Historical simulations began to include Earth timelines. Battle models shifted from predictive dominance to chaotic adaptability. Tactical AI rejected linear logic in favor of scenario stacking, exactly how Vance had once described it. And in places far from any battlefield, alien poets began to write of Earth as the first world that died not with silence, but with style. That was the final twist. Vance had never needed to survive. He just needed to be remembered well enough to be copied. And once he was, the virus was in. A diplomat from the Aurelian Accord once asked, "What did humanity want in the end?" A former soldier answered, "Not to win." Then what? To prove that war isn't about force. It's about legacy. Who tells the last story? And Earth? Told it loudest. Final transmission detected across multiple star sectors carried the following message. This is not a threat. Not a promise. Just a pattern. Repeating. Growing. Learning. You tried to bury us in silence. But now your war sings with our voice. You thought you knew war. You still don't. But you will. And when you do, don't thank us. Just tell the story right.